Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue. And guess what? My cohort in Creepitude is back. Sonia Mansfield. Sonia, hello.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. It's nice to have you back. It's nice to see your sweet face up on my computer. Sonia was in Ireland. She's ready to run away there.
Yes, it's spoilers. Ireland's beautiful. Hot take, I know. But Ireland, it's beautiful. It's green and gorgeous, and everybody's lovely, and the Guinness is magical, and it was a lovely, lovely trip. I appreciate our Alicia and Kristen filling in for me while I was out. I love those episodes. It's nice to be back.
They did a great job. Yeah. Once again, thank you to Alicia from Trashy Divorces and Kristen from Daily Fail, who had me on her show this week.
Ooh.
Yes.
I will listen to that too.
So thank you, Kristen. And also, she also set me up to meet with the folks from Fixing Famous People. And I talked about Jimmy Fallon. That was super fun. But let's get back to what we do, Sonia. Yes. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. We have covered this man before. Mm-hmm. We have an episode, we'll put in the show links, that was, we just reposted this past April. We did a quartet of comedy creeps. We also talked about Chris Hardwick, Chris D'Elia, the Chris's that suck, and Victoria Jackson. And then we also led with Russell Brand, who we're talking about today. Today is more of like what's been going on in the Russell Brand verse the last 2 weeks or so. Mm-hmm. He's a fucking creep, y'all. This is
gross. He's so gross.
But just to begin, we do have a basic Facebook page, but we don't really check it that often. And that's just a place where people go to complain about our language. We use salty language in this program, if you haven't already noticed.
Yeah, fucking deal with it.
We are much more interactive in our private Facebook group. Private. You have to ask to join us and just not be a creep when you're there. We talk about creeps from the past to the present there. We also talk about Dorking Out, which is our other show, which is all about movies that we're dorking out about. We are on Creep Pod on the dead named Twitter because somebody had a What a Creep there for over 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We're on Instagram and Threads at What a Creep Podcast. And we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Sonia, do you want to tell them about our website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. I know the website has been having some issues. Oh. I'm sorry if sometimes it wants to load, sometimes it doesn't. I'm pondering moving that website to something different, but you don't need to worry about that stuff. That's like back-end shit. But anyway, assuming you can get on there, you should go on the website. And in each of our episodes, you can open it up and you could see all of our show notes because we source every single thing we do. We're not making any of this shit up, and we want to give credit to the people that do all the work.
Yep.
And if you're looking to do a deeper dive on any of our creeps, that's a great place to start. We also have a link to our merch shop where you could get t-shirts and tote bags and face masks.
Mugs.
You should still be wearing those face masks. Your girl got COVID when she came home from Ireland because I get the best souvenirs. So yeah, get yourself some face masks. There's also a link to our Substack if you would like to sign up for our monthly Substack where we talk about, we do updates on our creeps. I write funny things. You get a horoscope. I tell you what's coming next on our show. So check it out. And there's a link to our Patreon page. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
I certainly do. Certainly. Patreon. Look up What a Creep Podcast. The money we use there is a lot of it's to pay for the news outlets that we both subscribe to. We do pay for the news because these are the real people that are hitting the dirt and like doing the work all day. Yeah. We support
and by news,
that.
You mean People Magazine.
Of course, and Daily Mail, of course.
No. we pay for lots of other different sources. I'm kidding.
And this is also just for the software and all that other stuff
Yeah.
like that. But it just helps keep the lights on and keeps us going. And we really appreciate y'all. We put out the first, on the Patreon wall is the first 8 seasons of the show. 8! Then we also put out 2 bonus episodes every month because Sonia had the vid. We have to put that off to next week, but we will put out 2 bonus episodes next week. And I would like to say thank you to Roxanne, Timothy, Becky, and Theresia. Thank you all so very much for joining that.
You.
You guys are amazing. And I'd also like to say, look, if money's tight, we totally understand that. You can leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. I want to start by saying thank you on Spotify to Karen and Leontine. Oh, God damn it. I hope I didn't say that wrong. But thank you all. You have to, at Spotify now, once you listen to an episode, you can now leave a review. Also want to say thank you from Australia. This is on the iTunes. Rube from Australia gave us 5 stars and said that awesome banter with informative stories of dead set dicks. I love that.
All right.
We also, from Avery B73 to non-bitter betches. God bless you for doing that. And we have one more, and I have Nina from Norway. Thank you for leaving us a 5-star review in iTunes.
Thank you.
It helps us to find our people, and it also helps us because when we talk about some people who are super controversial, like we will today, we tend to get assholes who show up and want to yuck our yum. But we won't allow that.
No. I like Russell Brand. 1 star.
By the way, you could like him. Fine. I don't give a shit. But supporting rapists and making...
Gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, we talked about it. There's a link in the show notes to that previous episode. Russell Brand was a part of our quartet of creeps, comedy creeps, in season 8 of our show. He has managed to be exposed as even bigger creep, with several women alleging he sexually assaulted, slapped, raped them over the years. He denies this, blaming the oligarchs in the MSM, mainstream media, for setting him up because he likes ivermectin, whatever that's called, for a cure for COVID-19. Ivermectin. This guy sucks. We have plenty of evidence to back us up, and the sources are below. Now, trigger warnings, I've said it before, I'll say it again, that I said in the intro. Sexual assault and rape. Please take care of yourselves. This is a tough subject. I'm not going to get too graphic. We're just going to try to give you the information, but we also want to say we do believe women, we believe victims, we support them.
Yes.
This is a safe space for you. We want you to know that. Channel 4, Dispatches. Okay, that was the documentary that aired, and it's with the Sunday Times, The Times, and BBC4 in England, or Channel 4. I'm sorry, not sure the difference between them. But anyway, this is a 4-year-long investigation into Russell Brand. And I should say also, Sonia and I also get DMs from people when we first talked about him that said, hey, you didn't mention this about him, and we didn't have any...
We didn't have confirmation on that.
Right.
We need other outlets to kind of do that dirty work for us and verify these things. We can't just throw things out there without some sort of confirmation. So what we learned recently was not news to us. Let's just say
Correct.
that.
The documentary, as I said, was airing in the UK, and they had a link, and I tried to link up for it, but I think, I put in my zip code and it didn't work. It wouldn't take it. So I don't know if it's still just available there, but I did put in our Facebook group about a 9-minute segment that I found on it. So you could check that out. The Mirror, some of these papers, by the way, some of these websites for these papers, oh my God, just the bombardment of the dumb ads and everything. I mean, okay. Anyway, The Mirror, Russell Brand sends a text apology to one of his victims. LA Times, a couple of the Daily Mails. One was a story about how Russell Brand offered to send his assistant over to Jimmy Savile's house. Creep. PBS. I loved this. The Pod Save the UK podcast. And it's the Russell Brand scandal and fixing the police. Excellent. Deadline, The Atlantic, Vice, YouTube, Russell Brand show playing a prank on Andrew Sachs. They did to that old man. We talked about that in the first show. Vulture, New Music Express, Salon, Telegraph, Alternative Press, BuzzFeed. This is when Russell was critiquing WAP, that song. Dick. New Zealand Herald, Huffington Post UK. 2 of his books that I found that were still on my Kindle. My Bookie Wook. And Bookie Wook 2. Ugh.
I'm going to refrain from making fun of the name because I did it so much in our other episode. But those names are stupid.
They're fucking dumb. Slate, New York Post. There's also an update page on the New York Post because there's been stories about him every day. BBC, People Magazine. We love our People Magazine. There was a story in there where he encouraged a 15-year-old, they have tape of this, encouraging a 15-year-old to have a sex-themed birthday party when she turns 16. By the way, Sonia, I didn't know this before, but it turns out in the UK, the age of consent is 16. So that's like in America, we make a lot of jokes about 18. Really piggish men do that.
Right.
Sorry. Sky News on YouTube. Talk TV with Piers Morgan. Barf. He's a former creep of ours. He's a little skeptical, Sonia.
Surprise.
ABC News, The Majority Report, Daily Beast, once again, The Telegraph, People Magazine timeline, New York Times timeline, and The Independent. Yikes.
You know what? Men who focus in on the age of consent stuff disturb me because what it tells me is these dudes would go even younger, except it's against the law.
Yeah. And I don't know. Did you ever have friends? I know some people who had like much older boyfriends when I was in high school.
Yeah, me too.
And I thought that those guys were fucking losers.
Yes.
While my friends thought they were being really cool and adult and mature and, beyond my years, I was like, y'all are fooling yourselves.
I remember saying to a friend specifically, I think it's weird that this man who's 22 is dating someone who's 15.
Ugh.
And she was like, well, I'm really mature. And I was like, if you say so.
Right.
But also.
Sure, Jan. The background of him is Russell Edward Brand. He was born June 5th, 1975. He's based in the UK, raised in the UK, educated in the UK. His whole shtick, he's done stand-up, television, film, and radio. As they say there, he's a presenter. That's like the sort of overarching title. Mm-hmm. But he has done stand-up shows. He's been in movies. He was really big about 15 years ago, I'd say. Yeah,
forgetting Sarah Marshall. Get him to the
Greek,
movie, which I've never seen, but I hear is funny. I haven't seen it.
Arthur, that was the remake.
Right.
And I talked to the producer for that movie the other day, and he had some thoughts that I'm not allowed to share, but I'll tell you off camera. But
please,
yeah. Once again, I can't share things if people tell me I can't share them. So
yes.
This guy's a pig. His whole thing is that he's tall, he's lanky, he's very loquacious. He loves to use big SAT words, as I call them. He's someone who just, he has this, his whole shtick is that he's kind of this rebel. And it's like he's from another time and another generation. It's like he's like the mod dandy kind of guy, but he's very current, but he's thinking about the world and he wants to bring people together, but there's so much skepticism, and he's just really had a reputation for, he's admitted to, by the way, he's admitted to 2 things: that he's an addict, and he's been clean for about 21 years. Mm-hmm. Good for him.
Yeah.
And I don't judge anybody for addiction. I lost my younger brother to addiction. It's serious to me. So
yes.
But it's also
by clean you mean sober, because he doesn't look clean. You know what I mean? Like, he looks like he smells bad is what I'm saying.
I don't think he uses deodorant. I'm sure he's one of those tea tree oil people.
He's 100% stinky.
He's one of those, like, he he brings his bare feet and sits bare leg, cross-legged on your furniture and doesn't think it's gross. This is, the guy has this reputation. Yes, he tries stand-up comedy. He does some acting. His big breaks were really in the BBC. And radio's huge in England. They have the radio stars there have a lot of clout.
Yeah.
Not as much here in America. Maybe Howard Stern, but like a couple of others, but we don't really. And his whole thing was being edgy and calling people, and being like over the top. Like that's his whole shtick. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of people when he was working at the BBC who had problems with him and would complain to management about things like he took his dick out of his pants quite often.
No big deal.
He would corner women in their cubicles. He would corner women in the room with him. He would call people up and say sexually suggestive things. Once again, there's a link of him talking to a 15-year-old who sounds like she's actually 10 and that she should have a sex-themed birthday party. He's
nasty.
Known for doing interviews and being very handsy with women. And you and I, we know guys that go in for the feelies right that second. And some of them are good talkers and know how to knock people off their game.
Yes.
Those guys are fucking predators.
Yes, they are.
Even if they never actually rape someone, they're predators. They break boundaries. Mm-hmm. They're manipulative. They're egotistical.
And then I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. What's wrong with her?
It was supposed to be funny.
What's wrong with you?
It's so personal. I just thought she'd like to see my dick. I don't see what the big deal
The
is.
ones that are like, oh, give me a hug. That want to hug you. And then people say, oh, he's trying to feel your breast. Yeah, no shit. Like, that's people trying that with me since the 7th grade. Like, give me a fucking break.
Dude, I met grown men last week that tried that shit.
Really?
Yeah.
At the pubs?
Ew, no. Yes.
Ugh.
They weren't Irish, by the way. They weren't even Irish.
Like Canadians.
It was other Americans. I was like, don't be gross.
No. It's not okay. And there were DJs that worked at the time that even would say, what is going on here? This is not okay. This is inappropriate behavior. He made a lot of money for the BBC radio. And the people that make money, they don't care what happens. Like there's a different set of rules. Even if what they're doing is illegal, they don't care. This is shown
money
to us over and over and over and over again. It's money. It's also somebody like him is charming to people, and no one wants to bust on the charming person. The world is so centered to make men likable no matter what they do.
Yeah.
There was a producer, her name was Leslie Douglas, who basically watched his back for him. And she was in charge of the production there at BBC, and she hired him. And she would just tell the DJs to ignore him. It's no big deal. He's fine. He eventually gets fired from that gig. He has other things, like there's the Big Brother show. The Big Brother's a big deal over there.
Oh yeah, it's a huge hit. I mean, it's a pretty huge hit here. I have never watched any of the Big Brothers, but I know what it is, and I know it's a very, very big hit over there.
And they get our, former celebrities like Liza Minnelli's ex-husband, like go there and they reinvent themselves.
David Guest, or
Yes. He had a show called Big Brother's Big Mouth, and he had a reputation, like I said, talking to women in a particularly over-sexual way. He also, I forgot to mention, he's also said he was a sex addict for years, a pornography addict, which is why he was against WAP. Like, that was like pornography to him.
Oh, well, if it doesn't work for Russell Brand, then I guess nobody can enjoy it. So
when these allegations come out, we will get to the allegations. As I said, people would reach out to us and say, are you going to talk about him? And basically, there was this whisper network that went around. Mm-hmm. In his books, my bookie wook wook and all that bullshit, he talks about one instance. He talks about having sex with a woman. He came, she didn't. She's upset with him. She gets mad at him. She shoves at him to leave his apartment. He's so angry at her that he spits in her face and talks about this. And then feels
That's hilarious.
he's naked and he's chasing after her and she's leaving his home and he locks himself out of his home, his flat, but he's naked. He stalkers, Sonia. So he's
So funny.
yeah, and that's just one story that he admits to.
I don't know how to please women. Ha 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 ha.
What's wrong with the women? I'll do what I basically can, but what gonna do? He loves to do that shit. Like he's very demonstrative with his hands when he's talking.
Yes.
Like when Trump gives his speeches,
Yes.
he moves his fingers around, points around, and does all this shit. Daniel Sloss is a comic that talks about, did a whole segment that I posted in our Facebook group and I posted in our Instagram feed, talking about what men need to stand up more because he had a friend who was raped by a friend of his, and it was someone he knew for 8 years, and he couldn't believe it, and then he had to learn from his other female friends, like, this happens all the time, and women don't say things, and we've talked about Chris D'Elia. We've talked about all kinds of people that have credible allegations for a new. Let me say this also. In England, libel laws are no fucking joke. When they have to print a story, if they are found guilty of defaming a person, they have to come up with the money that person lost during that time. So if you're Russell Brand and you lose $1 million contract, any kind of contract, and it's found, in his favor, they have to pay him at least $1 million. Mm-hmm. I think part of the reason they have so many tabloids is like they're just pushing that edge. Daniel Sloss has a whole bit about like how men need to do this more, but for the most part, men in comedy don't call out other men. They minimize.
No, they don't want to stick their neck out.
Don't want to stick their neck out.
I might have to work with Russell Brand at some point, so I'm not going to be the person that says anything. It's harder for me. Let somebody else do it. And then that next person's like, no, somebody else will do it. And so on and so on.
It goes on and on. He was on a show called Roast Battle, which is the Comedy Central show in England. And it's basically a show where comics roast each other. And he was one of the judges. Mm-hmm. And there was Catherine Ryan was his co-host, and she's a stand-up comic. And she had said to them, he's a sexual assaulter. Everybody knows this about him. He's gross around women. And by the way, he's married now, and he just had his third baby. His wife had the third baby. Oh, by the way, he doesn't change diapers or nothing, by the way. That's like out of his purview.
That's women's work.
Women's work. They had comics that would make fun of him for the sexual assault charges, and he would get furious and then say, you can't air that. And so they had to take the stuff out. So the show only lasted a year because he did.
Because they were like 2 minutes long because they had to cut out all the jokes about his sexual assault.
It's a roast battle. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to hit you where it hurts. That's the whole point of roasting. Right? That's why I don't go to those.
Wait a second. I didn't know when I agreed to host a show about roasting that people were going to roast me.
Oh, Russell
I'm
Brand!
offended.
Look at my kooky hair. Isn't it amazing? Fuck this guy. Okay. Seriously. These are just a timeline of just some of the, like one of them's being Jimmy Savile that he gave, he basically was trying to offer his assistant to. He, in 2004 to 2006, his behavior on Big Brother's Big Mouth was reported to managers. They didn't do anything. He read Leslie Douglas for BBC, Radio 2, and Six Music, receives complaints about him multiple times, including hurling objects and urinating in bottles in view of everyone.
Jesus Christ, come on.
Doesn't stop him. That's 2007. 2008 is Sasha Gate, where a woman, Russell Brand, called this man and told him that he had sex with his granddaughter. Does it live on the air. The guy dies a couple of weeks later. He's like from Fawlty Towers. Yeah. In 2012, LA police are alerted to a rape allegation of a woman named Nadia. She doesn't file a report, but we'll get to her in a second. Mm-hmm. He hears, another colleague hears Phoebe screaming during alleged sex assault at his home in LA. He was pitched to host a show in 2013/2014 for Channel 4. And there were so many people that were concerned that they decided they should just take all the female off the crew of the show because the women
That's
so
better.
yeah.
That's easier. Instead of getting a host who doesn't sexually assault people, let's just get rid of all the women.
Right. Those are just some of the things that have happened over the years. So Russell, a couple of weeks ago, last Friday, excuse me, it's only been 1 week. It feels like forever. He releases a video on YouTube. And now he, at the time, by the way, he pivots from being left-wing-ish but never voted in his life to all of a sudden being all political and you need to listen to his opinions.
Yeah. Was that like right before the pandemic?
It's a couple years before. So he, around Bookie Wook, I think like the first book, is when he admitted he never voted, but he was talking about all of his political opinions. And then people rightfully pointed out, if you don't vote, shut the fuck up. Like you need to participate. And if you want your fans to make a difference, you need them to participate.
Yes.
Like that's the whole fucking point. He does do that. He also, like, once COVID hits and people are home, he starts a show, and it's he has a YouTube show, and he has podcasts that are very successful. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Your screen froze.
You froze. Okay, you froze for me too.
Oh.
Sorry.
Russell, you're a naughty boy. Interfering with our internet. He pivots to the right, and he has people on his show like Ron DeSantis, like Trump, Jordan Peterson as a guest, Jimmy Dore, just all these douchebags that...
All these gross people. Probably the Andrew Tates of the world.
Andrew Tate's, like, he has people on, and just much like Joe Rogan, and they've been on each other's show doing circle jerks, but it's much about, like, white men talking about things and just asking questions, Sonia. That's all they're doing.
Asking questions here.
Just all their question. He's like railing against the media. Why against the media? Because they kicked him the fuck out of England. They did not want anything to do with him anymore. He costs too much money. He's too problematic. And he instead looking inward and like, maybe I'm a rapey asshole and I need to do something about my life. I'm a father now.
No, it's other people.
Other people's problems. So he starts hosting his own podcasts. He starts hosting his own YouTube channel and does the whole thing like, is the mainstream media making a bigger deal about COVID or not? Was China involved? I don't know. Talk in the comments below. And all that engagement gets you more money from YouTube. It doesn't take a critical stance. He just says things, but then backs up and says, but I'm just asking questions. It's infuriating to me. You know,
that's how he makes his money.
That's how he makes his money. And yes, free speech, sure. I don't have to listen to it. You're right. I don't I mean, I think it's dangerous when you're giving bad health advice.
Yes.
That's a problem for me.
Yeah.
But fine. Y'all want to listen to him versus doctors. That's on you.
Sure, I'm dying to know what the guy from Forgetting Sarah Marshall thinks about contagious diseases. It's important. I'm just like, I want to learn about autism from Jenny McCarthy.
Correct. And you look at him, you're like, this is somebody who's super wealthy and super privileged, and he looks terrible. Why is that?
He looks so terrible.
He looks so bad. He is, I mean, Jesus Christ. So he puts out a video and says... Stop's coming out. The media is doing a coordinated effort to come and get me. I want you to understand that. Let me find it here, Sonia.
Yeah, all the media, we all decided, the media all got together and talked about Russell Brand, and we all decided we don't like you.
Brand will deny these accusations that are coming up. He doesn't say exactly what they are, but they're a coterie of accusations. He's throwing a lot of big words out there. But I seriously refute all these very, very serious criminal allegations. Don't you love my accent? Also, it's worth mentioning that there are witnesses whose evidence directly contradicts the narrative that these two mainstream media outlets are trying to construct, apparently in what seems to be a coordinated attack. That's fucking nonsense. So what happens is there's these mainstream media outlets, these outlets meaning professional journalists.
Yeah. How dare them?
How dare they when someone comes to them and says, hey, I know somebody's up to illegal shit. And rape is the only one that people seem to have a problem with, like people talking about and then like saying, I'm scared to go to the police. Every other thing, you know, they worry about their reputations. They worry about being demonized. They worry about, you know, being vulnerable and nothing happening in their favor. Only rape is the one that like everyone's like, no, you got to go to the police. You got to, you know, nobody understands anything else. So the next day, the charges come out, and there are several women who talk about his piggish behavior, and it's rapey, assaulty. Mm-hmm. One woman says that Brand raped her against a wall in his Los Angeles home. She was treated at a rape crisis center that same day. She had a medical report to show for this. And then they said, do you want to go to the police? We should say, and it says in the David Sloss video that we posted, and you can look it up yourselves. Daniel Sloss, excuse me. Rape cases, convictions are about under 5%.
Right.
Under 5%. Those are the ones that go to court. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to prove your case, and you have somebody very famous, very wealthy, who sues the shit out of people even whispering his name, and he's known for that. This is not easy. Yeah. A second woman alleges that Brand assaulted her when he was in his early 30s and she was 16, still at school. He referred to her as the child in this abusive and controlling relationship. She's one that the cab driver, using BBC money, by the way, to get a cab to pick this girl up from her home. And her parents are begging her not to go, but she's allowed. I mean, it's the consent. The driver begging her to not go inside his home. He says, please don't go in there. And she just thought she could handle it because you think you can handle it. Mm-hmm. You think if I just say no, and I know it's terrible. A third woman claims he sexually assaulted her while she worked with him in L.A. and that he threatened to take legal action if she told anyone else about her allegations. Does that a lot. Mm-hmm. Fourth woman alleged being sexually assaulted by Brand and being physically and emotionally abusive to her. He sent text to one woman and she kept the text message and he said, oh, I'm so sorry. That was over the line. And she says, look, no means no. You know, do I need to be tested now? And he says, oh, you don't need to be tested. He says that he's been... So these allegations come out on Saturday. That night, he goes to the Wembley Theater in front of 2,000 people and gets a standing ovation. So, attaboy!
Talk about cancel culture.
Cancel culture. This sold out gig, and he sells these all around the world. He sells himself as a health guru as well. He had some big event shindig going on in Australia that was coming up that he's been canceled from. He has been canceled. He lost his agent. He lost his literary contract is on hold. On YouTube, they've demonetized him, which a lot of people are bitching about. They're allowed to do that. You know, they have the freedom to do that with the people that they hire.
Yes, YouTube is not a public utility or not run by the government.
Right.
Like, they are a business. They do not have to do business with Russell Brand. And all these gross motherfuckers that show up and like give him a standing ovation, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you.
And you can be like, there's no proof or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These women could have fucking photographs. Yep. They could have video evidence, and you will not believe it anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. Even when a woman is like a perfect fucking witness, they don't care. They don't care. And like, this is why women don't like to come forward, because it doesn't fucking matter.
He's saying,
by the way, I'm not saying women shouldn't come forward. Like,
no, but I understand when they don't, to be honest.
But I understand when they don't.
Right.
Because the repercussions, the public blowback they get, the doxing, like all of that, I get it. Like, why would they? It's like you would rather just like privately like do your own work and heal instead of putting yourself out there. I get it. But all those people who stood up for him and these people that are still defending him, they should be fucking ashamed of themselves. It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. Look, we understand that there are allegations and he hasn't been through a trial yet. You don't have to go through a fucking trial to do a story about somebody breaking the law.
Correct.
That you don't have to wait for a judge and jury to to have an opinion. And the people who want to remind us that he hasn't been arrested yet. Let me say this also. Since then, supposedly Scotland Yard is looking at more allegations because more women contacted the reporters that reported about this.
This also have every time.
And we have reporters that follow our show that like every once in a while, like if you hear anything, let us know. They have to when somebody comes to a reporter and says, "I have an allegation about Russell Brand. They have to look at, did you really work at the BBC? Who else did you work with there? Did you tell anybody this happened? When did you tell them? I need to contact that person and confirm that." Their lawyers are going to go through everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Dude, watch a fucking movie, man. Watch Spotlight or something. Like, watch She Said. I don't know. Like, watch something. Like, it's not like, oh, a woman just walks into a newspaper office and they're like, "This happened to me." And they're like, "Thanks for the scoop." And they fucking put it in the paper. Like, it doesn't work that way. They confirm everything. They try to get more corroboration. They try to get more to the story. Like, I don't know what these people think are happening in newsrooms, but they're not just making this shit up.
It's the oligarchs, Sonia. They're all just like ruling everything. There are no people working there. There's nobody there that has any kind of character that actually like wants to do a good job. A sociopath. I mean, I can't take this. You should follow Alice R. Hamilton, by the way, on Twitter. She talks a lot. She's a comedian and talks a lot about rapey comics. And there's so many, unfortunately, out there. And
so many. Like, even when someone admits to what they've done, for example, we did an episode on Louis C.K.
Right.
Louis C.K. admitted to what he did. And people were like, he didn't do it. And I'm like, he literally admitted to what he did. They don't care.
Janine Garofalo still has his back. He admitted to doing it. She goes, "Oh, well, you know." Or if you say anything, don't you know he has daughters? You're embarrassing them. Like, no, he's embarrassing them.
Yeah.
Not us. Not us. Yeah. So fuck that.
When did she get so pick me?
Oh, she always was, really, if you look at it.
Then bums me out.
Yeah.
I used to really like her.
Same, but she's a big disappointment. He doesn't have a lot of friends. He has some friends that are, his fans are very upset about what's going on with him. People like Andrew Tate, Elon Musk.
These are awesome
Tucker
dudes.
Carlson, awesome dudes that have his back. And you could go Twitter, TikTok, find people that'll just be like, "This is what he's being accused of." But you gotta remember, there's not been a jury and a judge yet, so you can't say. And you can fucking talk about it. If somebody comes to the paper and says, "I work for this company and they pour toxic waste into the water," and nobody would do a fucking thing about it, and a reporter exposed them, would you go up to that person and say, "Why didn't you say it sooner? Why did you talk to that person? Why didn't you call the police?" It's like the assumption that they didn't do the right thing, and therefore it's not so bad what happened is pretzel logic. I just refuse to fucking understand, because that's just stupid.
It's because it's not about that.
It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's like you have this guy that says things that make you. This is the other thing, and I looked this up about. He's a true narcissist, and by the way, he calls himself a narcissist. So, yeah,
cool.
Yeah, buddy.
Cool.
He likes.
Finally, I agree with Russell Brand.
Yeah, exactly. That we can agree upon that, Russell. Yes, you're a flaming narcissist, and he likes to think of himself as somebody who has the real truth. And he's going to say it in a way that you're going to understand it. But he's going to use very flowery language in his British accent, so you're going to think he's super smart. I've had more than one person also say erudite. I'm like, oh, fuck you. No. He, by the way, refutes the charges. He doesn't deny the charges, which means he's trying to sue these. He's going to try to sue. He's going to try to whatever. But he does. I mean, Kristen. I'm sorry. What's her? Kristen Bell, who was with him in Finding Sarah Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Sarah Marshall.
She told him like the first day, "I know what you try to get away with, but don't try to get near me." And said that in all of her interviews. He was on the Tonight Show, and Catherine McPhee was the first guest. She was the second guest. He pulled her into his lap and started feeling her hips and her thighs. Jimmy Fallon, who's normally asleep when he interviews people, was like, "Oh my God, stop, dude." There are so many instances where he doesn't give a shit about boundaries. And just goes for the moment, like, I'm really funny and silly, and I used to be an addict, and I used to, have problems, but now I'm clean, and I think clearer, I have better judgment. You should listen to me. That's the
I've been through a lot,
narcissism.
so you should listen to me. I know what I'm talking about.
Right. Anyway, that's where we are right now with Russell Brand. And there's also tons of people you will find they're like, this is the least surprising news ever. A lot of people knew. But he's very litigious. And it's once again, it's very hard to get somebody arrested for these things, much less, convicted. The Danny Mastersons, who just was, convicted for 30 years, which is a shock. But it's very
people
rare.
were shocked that this happened. And then again, talk about man is literally convicted of it. And still, his people will write him letters and say, you should go easy on him, blah, blah, blah. It's really?
Yeah, Mila and Ashton really did themselves. I wasn't surprised about Red and Kitty. Was that her name? The mom and the dad? They're older. They're older.
I think a lot of them are in science. There's a Scientology connection here. But boy, that was garbage. That was some hot garbage.
Harvey Weinstein was convicted several years after things happened. That happens occasionally, but good God, it didn't happen for all the women that were accusing him. They were put on a stand. Jimmy Savile.
That shit was 30, 40 years later because that's how long it took to make it happen. And there are so many stories. It doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter how many stories there are. It doesn't matter how much proof they have. There is a sphere of protection around. When I say we, I mean society doesn't want to believe these things are possible. And they are very possible. Obviously.
Is Rumble the alternate to YouTube? Is that so? It is Rumble. That is the conservative YouTube. They're fine having Russell Brand on their channel. They'll monetize. It's fine. They're fine. You haven't been convicted of anything yet, so as long as you want to do that. So he goes on there. He can make his money. I know some people are complaining why should he lose all of his streams of income for accusations? And it's they're terrible accusations. He's plenty fucking rich. He can live. And he has lawyers. He can fight these things. And it's very difficult to prove this stuff. So I think these women have a lot of proof on them if they can get it to this level. And he knows that.
Yeah.
But there are other women now coming forward.
There's going to be a lot more.
And there's going to be a lot more. Some of the conversation, like I said before, is getting ugly. And we don't do that shit. We believe women. We believe the victims. We stand up for them. And, that's our creep this week, Russell Brand.
Dude, good job, my friend. What a piece of trash. He is just garbage.
It's yeah. Oh, redid the Alpha movie. I'll tell you about that later.
Okay. For our non-creep, I decided to share a list. It's in our show notes of organizations you can support to support victims of sexual assault. There's the End Violence Against Women International. There's Equality Now. A lot of these are international, but there's some that are just U.S. Global Network of Women's Shelters. That's a very good one to support. a global fund for women. There's the Human Rights Watch. Local sexual assault service providers. This is a great one where you can put in like zip codes and find like how you can support groups that are like local to your area.
Oh, that's
if you want to
great.
do that. There's the National Alliance to End Sexual Violence and the National Organization for Victim Assistance, another one that looks to help like individuals, not just policy and bigger issues, but actually like help people. And then the one I like kind of really honed in on is RAIN, which is the largest anti-sexual violence organization in the US. It has a ton of like information for people on its website. Again, the link will be in our show notes. But there is a hotline that you can call, by the way, and I wanted to list it here, 1-800-656-4673 that you can call, and they can help you with whatever you need. Just call it. They also have a website that's like centers.rain.org, and it's RAIN with 2 N's, and it will help you. They can help you find support in your area if something like this, if something happens to you like this. They can help you like when you press charges or just get resources to help yourself mentally, get some support. So, and if you want to contribute to them, I wanted to find out what they do with the money, and it's 95. So let's say for every dollar you donate, 95 cents of it goes directly to programs and services for survivors. Again, not for like policy things that are also important, but I was looking for things that you could actually help people directly. And that's what I was able to find. So those will be in the show notes. So if you want to do things like that, you should do that. And we believe women. So
We got your back.
we got you.
We got you. All right. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode. And if you like the sound of our voices, our ranty voices, we're actually not as ranty on our other show. And that show is called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. Sonia, we're already getting a lot of interest in our next one. What's the next movie we're covering?
We're going to do Peggy Sue Got Married. Is that what gets married?
Got married.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone. I have COVID brain. Please I have to accept my apologies. But it's streaming right now on Criterion Channel. So it's like young Nicolas Cage, Kathleen Turner,
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey. I'm looking forward to this rewatch. I think there's going to be a very interesting conversation to have about what you would do differently if you could go back. So, I'm very intrigued.
Ooh. All right. So please follow us on all the places I mentioned at the top of the show. If you have ideas for creeps and non-creeps, that's always kind of the tough one for us to come up with. We love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one from Ghostbusters, but you could be clever and think of something else if you want. Once again, our email is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, send us your address. We will drop them in the mail for you. Yeah. Join our Patreon page if you want to help us out, or just subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. That would be amazing. Or just tell a friend about the show.
That helps. We'll take it.
We'll take it. Like our tweets or whatever. Just, all that helps us. Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter, as long as that's a thing, Instagram, Threads, TikTok. I recently got an invitation to join Blue Sky.
I didn't get one.
Okay. So our friend over at This Ends at Prom had some codes, and I hit her up and she gave me one. So the minute I get codes, Margot's going to get codes.
There you go.
And then Creep and Dorking Out will also get codes. So we're making the move. It's happening. Feeling the flow. We're all going to go to Blue Sky, right? Where can people find you, my friend?
I am at Brooklyn Margot on Twitter, as long as that exists. On social media, the other social medias, Instagram and Threads, I am at Brooklyn Fit Chick. I am at brooklynfitchick.com. That's my website. And my TikTok is at my name, Margot Donahue, or Brooklyn Margot. I think you can find me there as well.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Please be safe. Take care of each other. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.